In this lesson, we're going to go over how to write the names and formulas of covalent compounds. So far, everything we've done is ionic. Ionic compounds are formed between a metal cation and a non-metal anion. Covalent compounds are formed from a group of non-metals that share electrons. So since we don't have any ions, we need a new way to indicate the number of atoms. So when we did ionic compounds, we said the cation came first, the anion came second. When we're doing covalent compounds, typically the least electronegative atom is written first. So similar to ionic, whichever one is more positive or whichever one is least electronegative. In your resource packet, we have a table of electronegativity values. So let's say carbon was forming a covalent bond with oxygen. Carbon is least electronegative, so we would write carbon first, followed by oxygen. When we did ionic compounds, we figured out the number of atoms based on how many ions we needed to make a neutral compound. Well, we're not dealing with ions. We're dealing with groups of nonmetals that are covalently bonding. So we need a new way to indicate how many atoms are in our formula. And we are going to add a prefix to do so. So the prefix indicates the number of atoms. So I am just going to list these prefixes for you. Pre means before, it's going to come before the elemental name. Some of these you should be familiar with, like triangle or tricycle, 3 sides, 3 wheels. Tri is 3. Penta, like a pentagon, 5 sides. Most of these you should be familiar with. Hexa, like a hexagon, it has 6 sides. 8 is octa, like an octagon. 10 is deca, like a decade, 10 years. So most of these, hopefully, you're a little bit familiar with. All right, a few other rules. The prefix mono is never used on the first atom. So if you only have one of the first atom, we're not going to use that prefix mono. Rule number 2. We are going to drop the A or the O from the prefix if the element starts with O. So we just want to drop that double vowel. Like if I had one oxygen, I wouldn't say monoxide, I would say monoxide. Just like with ionic, we are going to drop the ending of the second atom and add the suffix IDE. Lastly, in ionic compounds, we always wanted the lowest number subscripts. We were able to reduce when possible. We never reduce for covalent. Subscripts that share a common factor do not get reduced. So let's look at a few examples. First one, let's say I had CO. I only have one carbon. The prefix for one is mono. But remember, we do not use mono on the first atom. So I would just write carbon. We do use mono on the second atom. So I have one oxygen. Oxygen starts with O. So I'm going to drop the O from mono. Then I'm going to drop the ending of oxygen and add IDE. So this is carbon monoxide. And again, we drop that O from mono because we don't want that double O. Carbon monoxide. Example number 2. Let's say I had N2O4. The only time that I do not use a prefix is when it is one of the first atom. Now I have 2 nitrogens, so I need a prefix. My prefix for 2 is di. So this would be dinitrogen. I have 4 oxygens. My prefix for 4 is tetra. But again, oxygen starts with O. We need to drop the A or the O before oxygen. So I'm going to drop the A from tetra. For oxygen, drop the ending, drop the igen, and add IDE. Dinitrogen tetroxide. Again, we drop the A from tetra. We don't want to say tetraoxide. We're going to avoid that double vowel. Let's try a few on your own. Let's do BrCl5. Let's do Ni3. And then let's do P4O10. So pause the video, try these 3 on your own. When you're done, come back, check your answers, and see how you did. First one, 1-bromine, but again, we never use mono on the first atom. So I don't say monobromine, this is just bromine. I have 5 chlorines. The prefix for 5 is penta. I'm going to write in the element name, which is chlorine. We're going to drop the ending and add IDE. This compound is bromine pentachloride. I do not have to drop any letters from the prefix. We're only dropping letters before elements that start with O. Ni3, 1 nitrogen. But again, we never use mono on the first atom. I have 3 iodines. The prefix for 3 is tri. This is one example where we have that double vowel sound. This is triiodide. We don't drop I's. We only drop A's and O's, and we only drop them before elements that start with O. So this is still triiodide. Last one, 4 phosphorus atoms. Prefix for 4 is tetra. I'm not dropping any letters. I only drop letters before O's. So this would be tetra, phosphorus. My prefix for 10 is deca, like a decade. But oxygen starts with O, so make sure we're dropping the A from deca. And again, for oxygen, we drop the igen, drop the YGEN, and we add IDE. My formula would be tetraphosphorus decoxide. Lastly, let's go the other way. So if I give you the name, can you write the formula? These ones should be much easier than ionic. First one, dinitrogen monoxide. Number 2, let's do chlorine pentafluoride. And let's do disulfur decafluoride. Again, these should be pretty easy, but pause the video, try these 3 on your own. When you're ready, unpause, come back, and see how you did. First one, dinitrogen. Prefix di means 2. Monoxide. Oxide is oxygen. Mono means I only have one of them, but again, we don't need to write in that subscript 1. Second one, no prefix on chlorine. That means there's one of them. The only time we don't use a prefix if there's only one of the first atom in the formula. Pentafluoride. Penta is 5. ClF5. Last one, disulfur. Prefix di means 2. That means there are 2 sulfurs. Decafluoride. Prefix deca is 10. So my formula would be S2F10.